Hey everybody, Random Mike here. Today I'm going to be changing out the 16-tooth sprocket on my Norden 901 for a 15-tooth sprocket. I'm going to show some before and after footage from my speedo and tack comparing the two, and also show how to do the work. While I'm in there, I'm going to be installing a case saver guide. I watched a lot of videos on top speed in the Norden, and with my riding style, 200 plus kilometers an hour just doesn't interest me, but an extra 6% torque is intriguing for off-road. Let's get to it. So here's my 16-tooth OEM sprocket. I set my cruise control for 100 kilometers an hour, started with 3rd gear and went up through 6th. So here's a good close-up view of where we're going to be working. The first thing to do is remove the shift linkage, get that out of the way. I followed the service manual and removed the linkage from the bell housing, but I think a better method would be to remove the top or the bottom screw of the linkage instead of the bell housing. Then you wouldn't have to readjust anything. So as you can see, I didn't mark mine, but of course you'd want to mark the positioning of it before you remove it. So we're just going to move that linkage out of the way while we work. And we're going to remove these 3 screws here as I'm shown, and we'll remove the plastic cover and expose the front sprocket. And on this final bottom screw you'll see why we had to free up that shift lever. And once our 3 screws are out, we're free to remove that plastic cover and expose the front sprocket. Now that we have the front sprocket exposed, we can pull off the bolt, securing the front sprocket. And if you're using hand tools, it'll be a little easier to remove if you have a partner holding down the rear brake lever. Remove the washer holding on the sprocket as well. Keep that safe, we'll be reusing that. And at this point you should just be able to pull the sprocket off with the chain and get the chain off the sprocket and remove it. I use JT sprockets. Part number of that is JTF1902.15. I think it was just over 30 bucks on Amazon. So we're just going to move that chain out of the way and give it a little clean behind there. You can see how dirty it is already. It's got, I think, around 3,000 kilometers on here, and it just gets in there. It's a whole point in putting this new case saver on. It's got not much of a cover as the plastic one, and it doesn't hold as much goop and grime and mud. Be a lot easier to clean. So our new sprocket's 1 tooth smaller, so it'll be actually easier to get in than it was to take the other one out. And a small dab of blue Loctite on there. You don't need a lot, it spreads out quite a bit inside there. And then of course making sure you put that washer back in. It's going to go cup side towards the sprocket. And we're going to just snug down the bolt for now, and then we're going to torque that to 44 foot-pounds or 60 Newton meters. Now, as you may or may not have noticed, over to the side there, in the corner of the video, you see the chain is pretty loose. Definitely going to have to adjust that before you get back on the road. So here's our new case saver. There's our new guide. So your kit should come with a couple of spacers. We're going to put those in the holes where the smaller screws go. And be sure to put the smaller side of the guide towards the front of the bike. So I'm going to start with the two smaller bolts with the spacers, as you won't be able to get the spacers in if you start with the large bolt. So just as a reminder, we're going to use the two existing holes, and we're not going to use that third bottom hole that we came out of, and we're going to use a larger hole for that larger bolt there. That's just an existing engine case. So just start those screws with your finger. Worst thing that can happen is that you cross thread into your engine case and then you have to drill things out, which will be terrible. So just get them started with your fingers, and then you can use tools after that. Then we'll slide that guide underneath. Just remember, keep the smaller side towards the front of the bike. Again, start the bolt with your fingers. We don't want to be cross-threading anything. And then we'll snug those up with your tools, not tight, and then we're going to torque them. At this point, we're ready to install the shift lever. If you removed it, like I did, and marked it, just simply line up your marks. If you didn't mark it, well, you're going to have a lot of adjusting to do. The biggest thing is to make sure that you install it underneath the screw and not over top of the screw, or you're going to be shifting backwards, which is going to be extremely dangerous. Then we'll install that last screw by hand, and we're getting a Loctite and torque to 7.4 foot-pounds or 10 Newton meters. And before we go down the road, of course, we're going to have to adjust that chain tension. So here's my test ride. I added the 16-tooth sprocket in parentheses after the 15-tooth sprocket results. You can see, raised it up a little bit more, so we essentially got 6% extra torque and lost 6% off our top speed. That's okay by me for my riding. We'll see you guys next time.